are talking about the movie Mercy Black. This one is directed and written by Owen Egerton, and this one stars Daniella Pineda, who you may know from Jurassic World. She was kind of a supporting character in that. I think she's also been in the originals. And you've also got Janine Garofalo in this, who probably the biggest known here. You've also got the guy who plays Dwight in The Walking Dead, also turns up for a small role in this film. So the story is kind of like an urban legend kind of story. So we have this girl who has been kept in psychiatric care and all through her childhood into adulthood, because when she was a child, her and two other girls basically got involved in a kind of a dark ritual, so to speak, should we call it, where they were trying to summon a kind of spirit that they had invented themselves ultimately. And there was kind of a someone got hurt in it, and they kind of obviously blame this kind of creature. So because of that, she's ended up in psychiatric care. So years later, she's kind of out as a kind of a young adult, and she goes to live with her sister and her sister's young boy. Now, of course, at this point in her life, she's kind of put it all down to, mental problems and such like that, and she's trying to kind of acclimate back into a kind of a normal life. But the past comes knocking again, where there seems to be, maybe this whole thing wasn't in her head. Maybe there really is this kind of like mysterious entity known as Mercy Black, who is really kind of out there and maybe has designs on her young nephew. Or maybe it's just all in her head. Maybe it's something that she's completely imagining, or it could be something else entirely. You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's talk about Mercy Black, what works first of all. So this is actually a slickly produced film. I think it's actually being put out by Blumhouse, although it's more of a purchased one rather than a produced one, so to speak. So but it does have a kind of a slick, well-polished look to it. So it looks like they've had a good production on it ultimately, and it kind of does look like it's professionally made, slickly produced. All the cameras are all the camera angles and the kind of the photography is all kind of crisp, and the lighting is all very good, the sound placement, everything like that is to a very good standard. So it kind of looks like it has some experience behind the camera here. So it's certainly a functional, but ultimately an uninspired movie. I thought the acting was all very good here across the board. I'm not overly familiar with the people in this film, to be quite honest, but I thought that they all did a decent enough job here. I really like the young boy, this girl's nephew. I thought he does an excellent job of kind of doing that cute but then creepy kind of thing. That was all pretty good. The use of effects is minimal, and I think it works in favour of this film because obviously it's still a relatively low budget film. So when we do see effect shots, they do feel they look quite good, and obviously the bulk of this is saved kind of towards the end of the movie. It has a TV movie feel to it, if you know what I mean. So it doesn't really feel like it's kind of charting any new territory. It all feels very much like something you've seen before. Now, it does seem, I've got to be honest, this movie does seem very pedestrian, and if you feel like you're treading water for a lot of this plot until we kind of get to the climax. When we get to the climax, maybe the status quo, changes and kind of things are revealed. But I have to say, I thought the way that kind of portion of story was handled was a little bit convoluted. And when you think back to, maybe what's happened with the rest of the film, I feel it doesn't make a lot of sense and doesn't logically kind of fit together when you think about certain events that has happened in the film. It does kind of say, oh, it was this, but I don't quite buy it based on what we've seen obviously on the film. I just don't. To me, it just didn't quite make sense to me. So it's a certainly watchable film from a production standpoint. It's certainly, a well-made film in regards to its technical aspect. It's well acted, but there's really not much to this. So the story itself is just your typical kind of thing that you've seen 100 times before. And when we eventually do get to the reveals, I feel it's a little bit too rushed, ends up being a little bit convoluted, and the twist, so to speak, I don't know. I just wasn't quite buying it. There were certain things that to me that didn't kind of make a lot of sense. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what they are here. So it ends up being somewhat of an average but passable and watchable horror film. But it's simply okay. I mean, you won't hate this. You won't be offended. But I don't think anyone's going to be rushing out to say this is their kind of their favourite horror film. So it sits right in that kind of that middle ground, ultimately, of being acceptable, pedestrian, okay, whatever you want to call it. So because of that, I will give it just a bang on average review of 5 out of 10. Well made, but certainly nothing outstanding. I don't think it's going to be a film that's going to be remembered at all in any aspect. I feel it's trying to make a character out of Mercy Black, but I don't feel there's enough done in the film to make that warranted. You'll see what I mean if you see it. So 5 out of 10 for me. Have you seen this film? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.